And we're live on Book Chat Live. And today we have, from a very professional looking studio, Tracy Headley. Is it Headley? It's not pronounced in some weird way.
Headley. Yeah, no, it is Tracy Headley.
And you were saying to me that you could have picked many more books than you picked.
I could. I really
avid reader.
struggled. Yeah. And read books for years and years and years, always reading books, from academic books to business books to fun books, autobiographies, and listened to a lot now for time management.
Okay.
Audible's fabulous for that.
Shall we jump in?
Yeah.
Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which is a book that I'm amazed has not been on the show before.
Has it not?
No, I was amazed.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I was selecting the books, you're trying to think of something that there, for business-wise, there seems to be like a mainstream of books that a lot of business owners would read. But this one, I love so much, because I think whether you're an academic, if you're a student or a lecturer, and you're that way inclined, a scholar, shall we say, or you're a business owner that's self-employed with no business acumen whatsoever, it's readable by everybody. And it starts with why. It makes sense. You think, well, why has no one come up with it earlier? It's always the things that sound the most obvious that have the most impact. But I just, I like the way it's all explained and just accessible by everybody. And it's quite motivational as well, I think.
Okay, so for anybody who isn't familiar, I have read this book a while ago. What does he mean, start with why? What does that mean in practice? What does that mean to you?
So it's a business book, and starts with why seems to be the most obvious. So whether you're developing your business strategy or whatever it is, the reason behind why you're doing something is what matters most. So I found myself, I'm talking with people, I think, well, so what does that mean? And so you get to the core of why you're doing something, which sounds really obvious, but we don't always know why we're doing something. Sometimes we've got very subliminal motivators that we don't even know are our motivators. So I think it just gets to the bottom of all that. So yeah, it's a business book, but actually getting to the core of why you're in business, why you're in the business that you're doing, why you're everything. Why? So from that kind of gives you a good solid foundation. You can build your plans from there.
Okay. Do you want to go into the next book?
Yeah.
Which is not a business book.
It's not.
Windswept and Interesting by Connolly.
Yeah. So I could have quite easily have gone for all business books, but yeah, I love autobiographies and I love Billy Connolly. He is my all-time favorite comedian. I got to see him a number of years ago and it was just amazing. But this book, I read this last year. It was my 50th. Whisper, shh, don't tell anyone. And I was away on holiday and I thought, well, I don't want to read a business book. I want to read this. And I just loved it because within the book, you really get to know who he is. And he doesn't care less what people think, which is worlds apart from me, if I'm honest. So I think I found it quite, it was just nice to be like escapism, really, sort of escape into somebody else's notion of don't give a monkey's what anybody else thinks. And it was so funny. So I found myself listening with my AirPods in. And sometimes because of my hair, you can't always see my AirPods. So I'm on the beach on my own at some points, or walking along the beach with my AirPods in, chuckling to myself. And then trying to convince myself, actually, I'm going to be windswept and interesting and not care that people think that I'm just laughing to myself or at them. Even worse, it could have been worse. But it's a brilliant book. So funny. So funny. And really actually get to know who he is. I like autobiographies.
Yeah, I was amazed to find he was still alive. I thought I must have missed his. He's like 80 odd, and he's still going.
He is still going.
5 kids as well, which I found from Wikipedia, and I was looking out.
He lives in Florida, in a little small place in Florida, and he's not working now, just chilling and fishing, I think, and just generally not caring what other people think.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I've not seen that much of Billy Connolly, but I think he's one of those comedians. Every single time I've seen him online or on a program, he's always been funny. like there's often like I mean, it's easier now because of all bite-sized funny stuff, but
yeah,
in the past there were like most comedians had like not very funny bit in their routine, but he's just consistent.
I think he doesn't script stuff though, does he? And then
No.
so he goes off at a tangent, which seems like he's going around the world on a tangent, but then manages to come back to the punchline or where it started from. And it's a bit like that with the book, to be honest. You actually feel like he's talking to just you. And so like he would when he's on stage or being interviews where they digress a little bit, you know, there are times when he's done that in the book, but they've just left it in there and, you know, it's great. So yeah, you just feel like he's talking to you. So just chuckle along to yourself and hope that nobody's watching. Just be windswept and interesting. It's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think you should write the book, chuckle along as if nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Right. TED Talks by Chris Anderson.
Yes.
So,
it's a really good listen and a really good read. So there's so many books out there about public speaking, and not all business people are into public speaking. I actually listened to this. I was being interviewed on the TV, and I was heading down to London, and it was coincidental that I listened to it on my way down to London. But there's some really good tips in it, and the biggest thing that I got from this is they're kind of sharing their approach, do's and don'ts of what to do, which is really interesting. You can learn from that, obviously. But the biggest thing is to just be authentic. So yes, it's packed full of information, but it's not telling you what to do. It's not giving you like a formulaic structure of what a talk should be. It's full of hints and tips that you can take to your own presentations when you're doing public speaking, but to make sure that you've got your own flavor with that. So it's okay to be yourself. I think there's such a temptation when you start with public speaking to almost try and mimic other successful people, when actually, you know, we don't need to be like anybody else. If I've been booked as a speaker, you know, you're watching other speakers, and instead of comparing yourself, it's nice just to go, you know what, let's recognize the differences. We need to have different personalities, different backgrounds, different styles. And then, you know, especially if you're at an event where you're speaking with a number of other people, the audience then gets a real sort of diverse experience, really. But I love the book. It was great. And I think TED Talks, when you're into public speaking, it's kind of right up there. It's very well respected, isn't it? But I tell you what I didn't know, because I haven't been on TED Talks yet. It is a goal of mine. But they don't pay any of the speakers, and that's always been their philosophy. And I didn't know that until I listened to this book.
So you're less interested than you were.
No, I actually, I like the fact that they don't, because that means that it seems more genuine and authentic. Right?
Okay. So for anybody who's watching, because this is a general book show, who's like, what's TED? Is TED that little? Is that a character from a film a few years ago who was a teddy bear? And you'd be like, no. So what are TED Talks?
So they're a series of talks by people who are either inspirational or experts in their field, short talks specifically on their chosen topic. Now, I think historically, forgive me if I've got the dates wrong, but I think Chris Anderson took over the company. I think it was 2001. Forgive me if I've got that wrong. I was listening to the book, promise. But before that, they will have been talks on stage, which is what they are. But now there's such a huge YouTube following as well. So, you know, they're not paying their speakers, but they're getting good exposure. So if you go onto YouTube or the other channels, you know, they're all there. So if whatever topic it is, whatever area it is, I'm sure there will be a TED Talk on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew, but it's kind of, we always assume that everybody else knows.
We do.
Like, we've got a lot of business books and things to talk about, but Yeah, I don't think you can ever dumb down too much in a way. Anyway, on that note, Think Again by Adam Grant.
Yeah, this is a cracking book. So it's pretty much like a whole book on reframing. So reframing is, I guess, if your mind is in one state, you purposely reframe it to think another way, is the easiest way that I can describe it. So the book is just packed full of hints and tips like that, but there's quite a lot of interesting psychology in there as well, and some of it from a marketing perspective, some of it just from the way that we think. Again, this was a holiday book.
Yeah.
So I'm not very good at relaxing, so I would get AirPods in, walking around the pool, listening to this. So I am actually an NLP master practitioner myself, so I'm actually quite good and trained in reframing. But actually, this whole book about Think Again, it impacted me, and I've already had that training. So I would imagine that if somebody listened or read this book with none of that, it would have quite a big impact. And Think Again, it's quite a simple title, but that's basically what it gets you doing, is thinking about things very, very differently to what you might naturally do.
So what's an example of a kind of reframe that you would suggest in terms of the situation? What is a reframe? Let's go back to being basic.
Yeah. So a reframe is, let's give you an example. Okay. So a member of my team a few years ago came into work very upset because she'd been caught on a speed camera.
Yeah.
And the reason she was so upset is because she literally just had her driving license cleared. She said, "Oh, I've just got rid of those 3 points and da-da-da-da." So I went, "Oh, right." I went, "So really, you're in no worse position than what you were this morning then?"
Yeah.
And so that really kind of jolted her to think, and it just completely reframed her thought process, and she snapped out of the rather depressed mood that she was in. That's a really simple kind of thing. So we can purposely sort of reprogram and retrain our minds to think. I guess it's seeing things from a different perspective that makes us feel better.
Yeah. Okay. And sounds like it's the best book that you've read on that subject.
Yeah, because what I liked about it is it's got specific examples in it.
Yeah.
So it's got case studies, or it's got proven stats for certain things, the psychological tests and different circumstances that they've got. There was one, for example, where it was about a debate, and a debate is given points. And so each time somebody's debating something, you're seeing it from a different perspective. And actually, what they didn't know is one of the actual people that was debating was supposed to be a child. And the debate went back and forwards, and it was actually AI.
Oh.
But so with a debate, I guess you're doing the same thing, aren't you? Coming from a different perspective every single time. But yeah, so it was quite interesting.
Okay. Abundance by Deepak Shopra.
There seems to be a pattern forming here, because I didn't realise this, but again, this was something that I listened to on holiday. Now, I was very lucky to see Deepak Chopra a number of years ago, back, I think it was 2006. And there's something about his voice and his manner, and even if you're reading words. So I've read books and listened to books. This one I actually listened to, but I think there's something in his voice and the way that he talks. But even if you're reading words on a page, has a very calming influence.
Yeah.
So for me, this was just all about kind of slowing down again a bit. Same thing. I listened to this on holiday. I didn't realize when I was giving you my books that I didn't realize that they were all linked to holidays. I must need a holiday.
Yeah. That particular holiday was quite impactful. And
the thing with this is more to do with our spiritual selves, and there's things in there that go back millions of years. It's things that have been around for a long, long time, and he is just so knowledgeable and inspiring and calming and spiritual. It's just a very nice perspective to have.
Okay. Ooh. And it's Becoming by Michelle.
Oh, I love this book.
Yeah.
I love this book. So this wasn't a holiday book, but I very much, I've always liked Michelle Obama, and after reading the book, just liked her even more. I love her outlook. I love her work ethic. And also, you know, she's known for being the former president's wife, but she's such a successful woman in her own right.
Yeah.
Her principles, her morals, her experiences from being a child, everything's in there. And I feel like she's just been really, really honest in it as well. And so she takes you from a journey from being a child to an adult, but all the experiences and actually what went on in the background and the support that she gave her husband during the elections and things. I mean, I did learn a bit about American politics as well, but
yeah,
I just thought that balance between having a career, being in the limelight, managing her own career. She's a very intelligent woman, being a mom, you know, all of that. She was just really open and honest about it. And I think historically, for the first lady to be open and honest like that, I don't think it's ever happened before. And it's just all there on a plate. And I just think she's a wonderful woman. I loved the book. I loved it. I was a bit gutted when it got to the end, you know, and you feel like, oh, I could just carry on reading. Yeah, it was good. And also, for much as it's not a business book, you know, the way that she approached some of the things was very business minded as well. So I just, I loved it. I think she's a cracking woman.
Yeah, and well, I'm not entirely. I need to go back and check the records of the show, but I think this is the first case where we've had both the husband and wife's books recommended separately.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I have his book and I've not read it yet.
Yeah, that's been recommended on the show before. This book hasn't, but
right, okay. So it is on my list. So that's going to be my holiday books. I tend to listen to quite a lot of business books, sort of in my car and things like that day to day. But when I'm away, I like to read other things. But I'm not really into. I like a couple of authors. I do like a couple of crime authors and thriller authors, but I like autobiographies. But yeah, I purposely wanted to read Michelle's book first before her husband's.
All right, on to the next book. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. And this is not the book that most people pick by Dale Carnegie.
No, it's not. It'll be How to Win Friends and Influence People, I'm sure. Yeah. But this was more of a game changer for me. And you know what I really like about this book is, yes, it is by Dale Carnegie, but it's not Dale Carnegie saying, do this and do that. What he's done is interviewed lots of other people, successful people, some of them famous people, very well known, some of them not well known at all. And he's basically done research into other people's strategies for managing stress and managing worry. Now, this is a book that I won't ever part with. And it's one of those books where I think if you read it at a different time in your life, you would pick the significance of it would be impactful in a different way, depending on where you're at. But at the time I was reading it, I was going through a particularly horrid time, personally, professionally. It was just not a good time for me at all. And I was in a situation where I was asked to go to a meeting, and I thought it was just a general business meeting. And as it happened, the gentleman that owned the company had invited me to go for a meeting because he wanted to offer me a job. So because he knew that there was stuff going on that wasn't great, it would be a good time for me to suggest that perhaps I go and work for him rather than running my own businesses. And so we did that. And perhaps at the time, if I'd have told my family the situation, they might have said, well, do it. But what happened was I left there, and instead of it causing me a massive dilemma, because of something I'd read in this book, which was one of the strategies was, if you can cope with the worst thing that can happen, you can cope with anything, which sounds very simple, but at the time, for me, that really stuck with me. And I left that meeting and I got in my car and I was driving home. And as I was driving home, I just felt this immense relief and just thought, so what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is I have to go and get a really well-paid job working for somebody else. And I never looked back. I didn't accept the job. Ironically, I did go and see him and told him I wasn't accepting. He offered me more money, but he wasn't about the money. He was like,
Yeah.
no. But that relief of actually, yeah, that's the worst thing that can happen. But it came from that book. The bizarre thing is, I can't remember who it was within the book that was their strategies, because all these strategies are put by other people. They're all very useful, but that one for me was really significant. And so because of that, I will never part with the book ever. So some books I give away, but I wouldn't part with that one.
So it sounds like it's a dip in and out of a book as well. In that,
yeah, you could. I did read it from cover to cover, but yeah, you could dip in and out of it, because you could just maybe read a strategy by one person and then put it away for a while and read another. So maybe I'll dip back into it again.
Yeah. And you maybe accidentally, that's the interview that I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's a great book. So for me, I prefer that to How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay. That is all. Press the wrong button twice there.
I thought, is there another one coming up?
No, well, not meaning to say how the salami is made, so to speak. I can't remember what the expression is like, but I use those little clips it makes it easier for me to cut up the video. I'm going,
okay. Yeah.
Perfectly good live show, and now I'm making mistakes and going all over the show. So I like to ask people, and I kind of think I know what the answer might be to this question, but if you had to recommend one of those books to people, which book would you pick? And if there's a flow chart as to what questions you asked then tell us that as well.
Yeah, it would be Dale Carnegie. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Yeah, it would definitely be that. Because I think that's a really good place to start. Even if you're not at a point in life where you're feeling stressed and worried, to have those strategies, in advance of. And I think every business owner should have those tools anyway before they start in business. But I think, definitely that one. But for the biggest laugh and fun experience, Billy Connolly.
Yeah. So if you want entertainment, Billy Connolly. If you want to actually learn something, then Dale Carnegie, or is it Carnegie?
Carnegie. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Never know the thing. So you were talking beforehand that you have a podcast, and it's available on Amazon, is it?
It is available on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon Audible. It's called Be Better with Tracy Headley.
Ooh.
So it's split into 3 seasons. So season 1 was How to Be a Networking Ninja. Season 2 it's marketing advice, marketing and networking advice for small business owners.
Okay. So and you haven't written any books yet?
I'm in the process of. I'm halfway through.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
maybe I'll send them to you to review. I've had a few books in my head for many years, and I'm halfway through getting one down on paper. Finally.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Maybe we'll have you on. You can tell us what books you read since this show. When you.
I'm always reading.
Yeah, it's been great to have you on the Amazon part of the show, and just going to end the stream. And let's talk about the YouTube. We can talk more now because we're on the not Amazon part of the show. So, who is Tracy Headley, and how do you help? Or what do you do as a business? I mean, I should really know this. I should have researched this properly, but I didn't.
Yeah, sometimes it's best not to, though, isn't it? When you're interviewing somebody, and then it's more authentic, I guess. So I have 2 businesses. I've one called Business Over Breakfast Northwest. So I run Bob Club's networking groups in the northwest of England.
Oh, okay.
And so helping businesses to win business through referrals, through building relationships and getting referrals. I've been doing that since 2007. And then I have another business which is called Tracy Headley, tracyheadley.com. And I train people in networking. So do training workshops and in-house training with businesses and marketing, mentoring and consultancy. So the mentoring is online mentoring, which is actually brought about from the pandemic. I wasn't doing the online mentoring before that. And that's mainly what I do, which is probably why I love reading business books so much.
Yeah.
So I've, my qualifications are all business and marketing.
Yeah, well,
So
it's all
I wouldn't
in the modern age.
I know, but when I was doing my MBA, the amount of reading that you've got to do for that, they still say you still have to read for a degree, don't you? You have to read for an MBA, but all the academic stuff. So reading an autobiography, for example, is a bit like escapism from all that, isn't it? But yeah, that's what I do.
Say your sort of ideal client is that somebody in the northwest who's looking to network?
For the networking business, yeah. So Lancashire, Manchester, Cheshire based. Most of our groups are Lancashire and Manchester. But for the marketing, mentoring and training, that's anywhere. I've got a client in Sydney, in Australia. I've got clients down south. All over. Because with the mentoring, it's online. With the consultancy, it doesn't matter where they're based.
Okay. Struggling to think of anything else to ask. Because we've already talked about you writing books. What do you think the title of your book will be? And is it going to be about networking, or is it just going to be?
It's it's not. I came up with a concept while I was doing my podcast. So I've actually written some articles for Social Media Pulse, Maverick Paradox. There's another one going out soon for on this particular subject. So I came up with a concept called sporadic marketing syndrome, which is what many small business owners suffer from. So it's why, that lacking of consistency is often what can cause the problems with the sales revenue and ultimately the profits. So having identified that, those words just came out of my mouth during the podcast. So then obviously from the back of that, I've done loads of stuff to do with it. So it's about that. It's about, this is what it is. This is what it can cause, and this is how to get away from it and stop it happening again in the future. So it's just be packed full of value, really. Again, targeted at small business owners, but I just want to provide as much value as I can. I feel like that about the podcast as well. Adjust them, just try and add as much value to the businesses as possible. So that's what I'm. So I'm really enjoying doing it. I'm really enjoying writing it.
Yeah, well, that's what it should be, really. It's like if it was like there's a gun at your head to write the book, then that's not really a good situation.
It's just nice to, I think, when I'm writing, I write a lot of blogs as well. And I say write articles for some publications, but when I'm writing, that's, I think, the only time that I switch off and I'm just focused on what I'm doing. So yeah, I guess it's nice to be on the writing end and not the listening end for a change, or the reading end.
Anyway, it's been great to have you on the show today, this evening. And I really do need to work on some outro music, so I can just press that. But instead, I'm just going to press the end broadcast button and say thanks to everybody who's been watching on YouTube. So
thanks for having me on your show. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, and next week it's Dave Algeo. I mispronounced his surname again. I've interviewed this guy about 4 times, and I can never. But he's on the show next Monday, and it's Monday because I can't do the Tuesday. Yeah, how not to do a show? It should be consistent every Tuesday, but
consistency.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for people watching on YouTube.